Hi, marlacatherine fans.
Good morning, guys. This is Brooke and I's first YouTube video together, probably the last two because I'm begging him to film this. Today we're going to be talking about our finances, and this is not an instructional video in any way. This is just people have asked about it. So anyway, so take everything we say with a grain of salt. This is just what works for us. I was thinking we could first talk about our finances before we got married, and then we'll kind of talk about like what happened when we got married, how we track, and then I kind of asked on Instagram like Q&A. So people sent their questions. We'll just kind of skim through those. Starting off strong. Brock, how did you handle finances before we got married?
I was in school and working part-time jobs, and then I'd work during the summer to pay for my tuition. So I didn't. What was the question? How do I budget?
Yeah, did you do any like budgeting before we got married?
Honestly, no. I feel like if I did budgeting during school time, and I don't think this was the wisest thing to do, I essentially didn't do budgeting because I knew if I did, I would probably see that I wouldn't make it. But I always.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I mean, I always ended up making it financially, but like it's just depressing knowing that like I might not have any money, so I didn't budget during school.
Well, so for me, it was kind of similar. I feel like I've been like aware of my stream of income. I also feel like I'm not a huge spender, or if I am buying clothes, it's usually like, some people are asking about this, but like it's on a business transaction. So it's not coming out of like my personal budget. So for me, it was more like I was making sure I always had enough for my bills for the month, which usually was the case. And then
yeah, I never spent more than I made. That was the goal. I didn't really have any goals either. I was just like, I gotta get through school and then I'll figure it out and then I'll set myself up.
We're both graduated from college, or degrees. Brock graduated with his bachelor's and then I graduated just with my associates, but we're both graduated debt-free from college. So that's a huge thing, I feel like, for getting married as a newlywed, is we start out with little to no debt because he worked throughout college to pay for his own schooling, and I paid for my own schooling as well. But anyway, I know that's not the case for everyone. Once again, like, this is just us sharing our own experiences. Once Brock and I started like seriously dating and knowing that we were gonna get married, I do feel like finances was a topic that I knew that like it's not just like a thing you should discuss. I feel like it's a necessity if you're gonna be getting married and joining lives. For getting married, I feel like a lot of the questions people are asking was like, how do you handle your income, like two incomes together and splitting bills? I feel like I saw that quite a few times in the questions. I feel like getting married, you're joining all aspects of your life, and I feel like to me it wasn't a matter of like splitting the bills. It was just now like our bills are becoming ours together. Like we don't have like Brock's bills and then my bills. I feel like going in with that mentality probably made things a lot easier with the transition, because it was now like not Marla's money and Brock's money, it's just like our money combined. And once again, you do you, but I do feel like that is super helpful when you're gonna be joining lives together. It's just feeling like there's no more yours and mine, it's together. Okay, so how did we start tracking? Brock is very organized and super smart, so I feel like going into this, I didn't have much of a plan, a game plan. I just knew that I did want to track what we were spending.
We started out with an Excel spreadsheet, and then over time we kind of
did that for like a month.
Yeah, we changed it. But I would say a successful like budget is something you like doing and something that's kind of exciting.
Exciting, or just also easy. Like I don't think it needs to be super complicated. Brock works full time and then I work two part-time jobs. So I work as the orthodontist assistant and then I do social media, which the hours together maybe make like a full-time job. So those are our three main streams of income. But what we did is we roughly calculated how much we make each month, and we're gonna be just using example numbers in this video, but say we make $1,000 a month. We then calculated, which would not fly in this economy, but we then calculated how much our expenses are. So we literally went on average and I was like, how much do you usually spend on food? And then we did with me.
So yes, we started off originally on Google Sheets just so we could like share the sheet and update it. But the problem is you'd go in, and it was just a free template online. You'd go in and you'd like try to edit it. It wasn't very fast. So if you like did a transaction or like went shopping, then you'd have to go into like this Google Sheets app and then go to the row, and it was
find the right month, like. So
we found this app. It's a super simple app and it's like super fast to use. And it's just called Budget. I like this app because it had like just a one-time purchase of like $6 or something. So like this one's simple. It breaks it into just like expenses and income. Like those are the two main categories. But this one, like, it's not super fancy. It's all manual. And I think that is why we like it, because every time we spend something, we have to go track it.
Yeah, which I do feel like is a really good habit to be in versus those other apps. Like, they kind of do it for you. So once again, you might not be as aware of what your output is and what you're getting income. So with our expenses, this is, so once again, hypothetically, say we're making $1,000 a month, we know that that was our average income. Social media is kind of hard to predict with your income just because payouts are they're not very consistent. But we tried to generally accumulate how much we'd be making each month. We have 10 different categories. So we had housing and utilities, groceries, gas, personal money, healthcare, date nights, phone, giving, clothing, and car cleaning. But it's so nice because on the app, this is honestly how we do it. This is the answer to the entire video, is because I go to the store and I pick out a new pair of a shirt or a pair of socks. I go and track it under my clothing budget and then it will deduct it. So then for the rest of the month, I know that like as of current, we actually have not spent much on groceries this month. We still have almost $300. We have $295.26 left for groceries this month. But because I have that number and I can always see it, I feel like I have, when I go to the grocery store, I already know like how much I can spend, what to expect. I know when we're kind of running tight on the budget. But once again, because of the manual tracking, like I'm always aware of that, and same with him. A big question a lot of people were asking on Instagram too was like, how do you guys, did we combine, like do joint bank accounts or do we separate? So do you want to kind of talk about that?
The short answer to that is yes, we do combine our finances, but we also have like our own separate checking accounts with like, we set a certain portion of money. It's very small, but
it's minuscule.
To each like personal checking account, and she doesn't have access to mine, I don't have access to hers, and that's just kind of what we call free money. You can spend it how you will.
But that money's just allocated every month for whatever the heck I want. If I find something on Amazon, it's not a necessity, just random things like that.
Or like gas station snacks, or
yeah, something that's like not necessary that we don't really want to put in the budget, but it's something that you want still. Because I do think it's important to still have that sense of like personal autonomy of like, this is still like my money, and I don't think you have to completely sacrifice that when you do get married. And I also think it's not like an all or nothing mindset. Like I think you should be, for us, like we want to join everything together, but I still wanted to have that sense of like, this is still mine and this is still yours.
High level, I would probably explain it like this, so correct me if I miss anything. Every month we kind of have a budget reset.
Like literally on the first of the month.
Yeah, we'll do the last day of the month or the first of the month, either one. So we'll have that budget reset every month, and then every week on like Sunday night, we'll go through and just make sure what we spent on our cards matches what's in our budget app.
Yeah.
So down to the penny, we're making sure that we've tracked our income and that we've tracked our expenses and that it all matches within the app.
Well, because the app doesn't manually or it doesn't automatically track it, you do have to make sure, because I could say that I have $1,000 budget in the app, even if that's not true. Gotta make sure it's matching up with your bank accounts, but it literally takes like, once again, it's not super complicated. That takes like maybe 10 minutes on a Sunday night, and we just make sure we're reviewing, things are accurate.
What we kind of do in the beginning of the month, the first thing we do is we like balance out our budget for the previous month. So we'll go in and we'll pay off our credit card. That's a little bit niche. You don't necessarily have to do that. So all of our bills or like expenses or groceries that we pay for the month, we use like a 2% cashback card on everything. You don't have to do that. Like we never use that. We treat that credit card as if it's a debit card, right? So we never spend more than like we need to on that credit card. The only reason we do that is because we realize we'd get 20 bucks of cash back every month. We might as well just use a credit card and get points.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful with that.
I definitely think, yeah, it depends on like your personality type, because I do feel like Brock and I feel like we're similar in our spending habits, which I do think is something you should totally discuss and totally analyze while you're dating, because that is very much a real life situation you gotta deal with. Because it's gonna be an issue if like I'm constantly spending and Brock's really wanting to save a ton, or it's vice versa. So you need to find that balance. But I do feel like the credit card works for us. Kind of bringing that up is because I feel like every month we kind of adjusted. We like analyzed at the end of the month when we were doing our budget reset, and we're like, okay, let's reassess this. Is this working for us? And that's when we kind of change things a little bit.
Like we have three main steps or three main parts of our budgeting reset every month. We have like balance the old budget, and then the second one is reassess for the current month and adjust the budget as needed, and kind of like, so reset the current budget, right? And that includes allocating the money we need for the month and resetting categories if we need, or adjusting the amounts. And then the third step is just realigning on our goals. So I think that's a big one. If you don't have like goals with your finances, whether it's like get into a house, maybe get a car, just save.
Invest in your retirement, whatever it may be.
I feel like it's hard to even want to do a lot of tracking and budgeting. So we have a goal, so we're highly motivated to track.
Like with our gas budget, so like since I started a new job, I'm a lot closer now. And so we kind of like reduced the gas budget because I knew I wouldn't be spending as much. Like these are like the nitty gritty logistics, which once again, like,
this is just how my brain works, but
it works for us. But I do think I highly recommend taking the time to invest doing that, because then when you do spend your money, you don't feel any sense of like, where's this going? I feel like I'm burning a hole in my wallet. Like you have a general sense of control of like the money that's coming in and where it's going out, because you took the time to budget it out. When we first, like right before we got married, I remember we sat down, it was probably like an hour and a half. We literally went down every single category, which is not that much time in the grand scheme of things, but we did that a couple times just to like reassess and get started. And then after every month after that, we just readjusted according to what we were actually spending. The question a lot of people are asking was, how do you guys build credit? And that kind of goes back to like how we put everything. We allocate how much money we have for the month, but then I spend it on a credit card as if it was a debit card. And then at the end of the month, we just pay it off with the money that we had put aside.
I think this part is interesting because it's super easy to understand and it's very well organized. Essentially in our bank accounts, we have mostly joint accounts. So we have something that we call Smiley Deposit and Smiley Checking.
Smiley's our last name, if you didn't know. It's not just like a fun word.
So Smiley Deposit and Smiley Checking. Mm-hmm. Now, what we do is all the money we make that's income for the month goes into Smiley Deposit. So at our work, like we use that account.
That's all of our bank accounts are wired to that. So anything we make will go directly into Smiley Deposit.
And so Smiley Deposit is only for money coming in, like never going out. And then we have our Smiley Checking, which is always for money going out, never money coming in. Yeah. So Smiley Deposit receives the money and it just sits there for the whole month. And then we can quickly see like, oh, we've made this much for the month. And then Smiley Checking is like our expenses like bills and whatnot. Now how we used to do it a few months ago before we transitioned to a credit card is our debit card was attached to that Smiley Checking. So anytime we go to the store or get like toothpaste or something, it would just come out of that Smiley Checking, which is great because like, once you run out of money, you're out. You're out. You can't use any more. Every month when we do our budget reset, we would say, okay, this is like the total amount we need for the month, and we'd put that in Smiley Checking. Mm-hmm. And then we'd use our debit card and it would slowly tick down over the month. That works and that's great. We just decided to use a credit card. So
to build that credit. Because if you're going to be spending money anyway, within the budget.
So our budget amount sits in that checking account and it really just kind of stays there until we pay off the credit card at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm. Just make sure you don't miss those deadlines. Because that'll be bad.
Yeah, always zero out the credit card at the end of the month. And then we have another account called Reserve. That's for like expenses that aren't necessarily like month to month or like week to week, but we know that'll happen. So that includes things like car maintenance. Instead of just having to like pull that money out of nowhere or your savings account at the end of 6 months, we just set that money aside. All of reserve expenses, we know what they are. We take that, add them together, and just when we do our budget for the month, we put that
savings account for our big expenses that are coming up. How do you budget things such as date nights or weekly activities to keep the romance? Which is, once again, like your categories can be different than our categories if you choose to do this. But for us, like I knew I wanted to have a date night category. That was important to us. So we actually do, I think, $60 a month. We don't always use all of that. Sometimes we use all of it. But that way I know like every Friday night, if we want to go out to eat, we just pull it from a date night instead of grocery. And so, or like if I know that Friday night we wanted to buy tickets to some local concert, like that would come out of date night fund. But I do think it's important that like budgeting does not need to be restricting in the way of like now you can't enjoy the things that you are fun to you or the activities you like to do. You just need to now put a cap on how much you want to spend or are willing to spend on that. So
it also makes you be creative, like if like we've used all of our date night funds, we need to do something that's not
gonna spend money.
Yeah.
Which there's so many date ideas. This is such a random one that Rock and I did more so when we were dating, but that's still super fun now, is you can go, if you play the piano or something, you can go to like a senior living center and you can just go play the piano for them. Like it's a little concert. Like there's little things like that. They're more service oriented. Super fun date ideas, but yeah, so that's something that was important to us, and so that's, once again, we allocated that into the budget. Someone asked how much do you spend on your wedding?
Too much, I don't know.
Too much? We'll kind of touch on this super quickly, but something that was important to me with the wedding is that we kind of spent as little as possible. It's such a beautiful day, and I totally respect whatever someone else's decision is regarding their finances and their wedding. But for me, like I was just excited to get married to Brock, and so the rest of it was kind of fluff, and so I just spent as cheap as I could on florals, found like a more affordable venue. Like I also do feel like because of social media I had more opportunities to do collaborations, which did save a lot of money. My wedding dress was free, which was such a blessing, but I feel like our wedding out the door was probably $5,000. There's also a few family members that really helped out, which is such a blessing too, but we spent probably about $5,000-6,000.
Probably, yeah. Somewhere under 10, I think.
I think the entire wedding I would say was under 10K. Someone's asking, was combining finances hard? I'm engaged and worry it will be complicated. I just think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is communication and expressing like how you feel, but also like being very attentive and listening to how your partner feels too. I don't think personally for me combining finances was hard. I actually love organization. I loved like seeing the specific numbers down to the cent. I feel like I enjoy tracking in the app. I think it's super easy. Like, so for me, I don't feel like it was super complicated, but I think it's also because we took so much time to like figure it out and make sure it was very palatable for both of us, because there's definitely some things I was confused about, but just taking the time to explain it to each other and really work through it, because I do think ultimately if you're marrying someone, you should be able to not just, you know, have fun with them, but also be able to work with them and to work things out like this. The logistics are important. So what do you do when you don't agree with your spouse on parts of the budget? Communicate until you figure it out, because I just feel like there's going to be many times in life you don't agree on things, and there has to be a compromise. But yeah, just communicate as much as you can. People are asking what you do for work.
I just do software.
Yeah, back to software engineering. You studied in information systems. That was your major. So yeah, back to software. He's a genius. There's just a few more questions. We can wrap this up soon, but there's a few more questions about, I'm really interested in how you budget for clothes or influencer type things. A lot of people actually did ask about this. Anytime I get a paycheck from a sponsorship or from YouTube or whatever it may be, we'll take 5% of whatever that paycheck was and we'll set it aside. So then if I go spend money on clothes for a new video or something of the sort, which is technically a tax write-off, that will be coming from that 5% budget. Which I feel like it is a huge blessing, and also I feel like maybe makes our whole budgeting thing a lot easier for Brock and I, because if there is like a shirt that I want to purchase and it's for a YouTube video, like I do just put it on my business credit card. I know that's so different for everyone. How did your motivations and budgeting shift when you got married? Like, once again, like if you have goals, there's that quote, like if you don't have a destination, you're not gonna get anywhere.
Yeah, if you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there.
Yeah, you'll never get there. So I think having goals was a huge like mindset shift for me, because I don't feel like I really had financial goals before I got married. No, we do. We need to get into a house eventually.
We'd like to get into a house.
We'd like to. I think that's it. Recap. My first thing is to make sure you're dating someone. If you're watching this video for any advice, I would say date someone that is down to communicate and down to compromise.
In terms of, this is just advice, but like I think finances, if you look like at the statistics, it's the biggest strain in relationships. Not saying you have to completely agree on everything. That's just something I would recommend.
Make sure you discuss it a lot, like
you talk about before like you decide on any big steps in life. So combining finances is like, that's a big decision, and like unfortunately or fortunately, like the world
revolves around money.
Yeah, and it's just kind of something you have to deal with.
So find someone that you can deal
it's
money
important.
with in a positive manner. But once again, there's always going to be bumps in the road. It's just as long as you can work through them together. So find that. The next thing is find an app that works for you. I will have it linked down below in the description box. Once again, not sponsored, but it's called Just Budget. It's on the App Store. Then allocate what your expenses are, find what your average income is, and go from there. But I would just highly recommend track everything down to the penny. And I really think once you get in the habit, it's not difficult to do at all. Have goals, reassess those goals, and then just check in with them like weekly. And at the end of the month, like reassess, like, is this still where you want to go? Have you progressed with the goal, or whatever it may be?
This works for us to the point where like it kind of makes us excited to do finances and like watch our goals.
Nerds. So
this is more of like the details of it, the nitty gritty. And I think if you're excited to do it and you're excited to budget, you're doing something right. And I think that's like a mark of a successful, system. So in that sense, it's successful for us.
Sorry, one thing I will add too is I think it's so important, whether you make 20 bucks a month or you make $20,000 a month, as long as you're living within your means and you're budgeting, those are awesome habits to be establishing now, and not just waiting to establish those like once you're more well off, or whatever it may be. Like managing what you have is always going to be a beneficial thing.
Yeah, like there's a few guiding principles that we follow. A few of them are like never spend more than you make, obviously. That's like a big no-no. Have goals. Track your expenses, communicate with your partner about purchases.
Once you figure out a routine that works for you, once again, you just stick with that for the month and then readjust. And then stick with it, readjust. Like it is always, because we're always going to be making like different incomes throughout our life and having different expenses once we have kids. Like that's going to be a whole different ballpark. But I think it comes down to just finding what works for you and tracking it down with the sun. So.
Yeah.
Anything else? I'm trying to think.
That's it. That was kind of a lot of information. I don't know if we delivered that.
This video is for the niche audience that's been requesting this, because I plan on it getting 4 views, but I think that if you do benefit from this, like I honestly would have loved to watch a YouTube video like this right before I got married, from like a couple that was similar to us, but in financial situations. But I feel like this is once again not even telling you what to do, it's just what works for us. So okay, I think that's it. Okay, peace out guys. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you guys next Sunday. I'm so sorry that this video took forever to film. Brock and I's schedules, we just kept on putting this off, but we finally did it. Okay, peace out. Bye guys.